The alarm bells rang through Luna Base at 0347 hours, cutting through the quiet night shift like a knife. Commander Jake Sullivan rolled out of his bunk and hit the floor running. 23 years of military service had taught him that when the Deep Space Monitoring Array went crazy, someone was about to have a very bad day. He burst into the communications center where Lieutenant Sarah Kim was hunched over her console, her face pale in the blue glow of the screens. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked the controls with shaking hands. "What do we have, Kim?" Sullivan asked, grabbing a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. "Sir, you need to hear this. We picked up a transmission from deep space, beyond the outer colonies. It's not human." Kim's voice cracked slightly. "And sir, they're screaming for help." Sullivan set down his coffee cup hard enough to splash the dark liquid across his desk. In all his years monitoring the void between stars, they had never received anything like this. The search for alien life had consumed humanity for generations. But when it finally came, it arrived as a cry of desperation. "Put it through the translators and clean up the signal," he ordered. The speakers crackled to life with a sound that made everyone in the room stop what they were doing. It was clearly a voice, but unlike anything human ears had ever heard. The translator computers worked frantically, piecing together meaning from the alien words. "By the sacred lights of our ancestors, we beg any who can hear this message. Are the Galactic Federation of Peaceful Worlds. Our systems are dying, our people are being consumed. The Void Hunters have come from the dark between galaxies and we cannot stop them." The voice paused and they could hear what sounded like explosions in the background. When it continued, the desperation was clear, even through the mechanical. Translation: 3 star systems have already fallen. Billions of lives have been lost. The creatures eat everything, our ships, our cities, our people. They leave nothing but empty worlds, stripped of all life. We have tried to fight, but our ships are built for exploration and trade, not war. Our people know peace, not violence. Sullivan felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen combat in the colonial wars, but this sounded like something from humanity's darkest nightmares. We broadcast this message to all corners of the galaxy, hoping someone, anyone, might have the strength to help us. Our long-range sensors show many inhabited worlds, but we do not know if they possess military capability. To the unknown civilizations receiving this transmission, we are willing to share all our knowledge, all our technology, if you can help us survive. The message began to repeat, but Sullivan had heard enough. He grabbed the red phone that connected directly to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Lisa Parker answered on the second ring. She never slept when humanity's early warning systems were. "Active, Admiral. We have a situation. You need to get down here now." 30 minutes later, Parker stood in the communication center surrounded by the best minds in human space intelligence. Dr. Amy Foster, the xenobiology expert, worked alongside Captain Ryan Brooks from the Exploration Division. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as experts tried to process what they were hearing. "How far out is this coming from?" Parker asked. "Based on signal strength and delay, approximately 400 light-years," Kim reported. "The transmission is being repeated on multiple frequencies, suggesting they're desperate to reach anyone who might be listening." Dr. Foster looked up. From her analysis, "Admiral, I've been studying their language patterns and what they're telling us about themselves. These aliens evolved on what they call garden worlds, planets with light gravity, thin atmospheres, and very few predators. What we would consider basic survival skills appear to be completely unknown to them." Captain Brooks nodded. "Their ships are designed for peaceful exploration. Nice. Based on their technical specifications, they have impressive technology for science and industry, but zero military capability. They literally don't know how to fight." Parker stared at the star chart showing the location of the alien transmission. 400 light-years was a long way, but not impossible for human ships. The real question was what they would find when they got there. "What do we know about these Void Hunters?" she asked. Dr. Forster pulled up her analysis. "From what the aliens are describing, we're looking at a species that exists purely to consume other life forms. They travel in massive swarms, overwhelming their targets through sheer numbers. The Federation describes them as creatures of pure hunger that cannot be reasoned with or stopped. Sounds like locusts, Brooks muttered. Locusts that eat entire civilizations, Foster corrected. Parker walked to the large screen showing the galaxy map. Red dots marked the Alien Federation's territory, while human space showed up as a small cluster of blue dots far to one side. Humanity had been so focused on expanding into their local region that they had never imagined a vast galactic civilization existed beyond their reach. They don't know we exist, she realized. To them we're just another unknown world that might or might not be inhabited. Sullivan nodded. The message refers to unknown civilizations and inhabited worlds, but there's no specific mention of Earth or humanity. We're not on their maps. Which means, Parker continued, they have no idea what they're asking for help from. The room fell silent, as everyone understood the implications. The aliens were begging for help from what they assumed were other peaceful civilizations like themselves. They could not imagine that their plea for assistance was being heard by a species that had spent its entire history learning how to kill things more efficiently. Humanity had clawed its way to the top of Earth's food chain not through peaceful cooperation, but through superior weapons, better tactics, and an absolute refusal to give up when things looked hopeless. Every human military doctrine assumed that the enemy was actively trying to kill them and had to be stopped by any means necessary. Parker looked around the room at the faces of her officers. She could see the same thought in all their eyes. The galaxy's peaceful civilizations were crying for help, and they had accidentally called the one species that actually knew how to answer. Get me a direct line to the president, she ordered. Start preparing fleet mobilization orders. If these aliens want help dealing with monsters from the dark, they're about to learn what a real military response looks like. The distress call continued to repeat, echoing through the cold vacuum of space, carrying its message of desperation and hope to a species that understood both war and the cost of losing it. General Marcus Stone had seen many war rooms in his 40-year career, but nothing compared to the massive command center buried 3 kilometers beneath Colorado Springs. Every screen showed ship movements, supply lines, and troop deployments, as humanity prepared for the largest military operation in its history. 72 hours had passed since the alien distress call reached Earth. In that time, every major nation had committed their space forces to the response fleet. The politics had been surprisingly simple when faced with the possibility of galaxy-eating monsters eventually reaching human space. Old rivalries seemed petty and pointless. Current fleet status, Colonel Stone ordered. Colonel Patricia Hayes stood at attention beside the main display. Sir, we have 847 combat vessels committed to the operation. That includes 12 dreadnoughts, 64 heavy cruisers, 218 destroyers, and 353 fighters. Support vessels bring the total to over 1,000 ships. Stone nodded, but his expression remained grim. And how long to reach the alien territory? 18 days at maximum burn, sir. The lead elements will arrive in Federation space 6 days ahead of the main fleet. On the far side of the command center, Commander Kelly Hayes checked her equipment one final time. Her stealth ship Silent Thunder would be among the first human vessels to enter alien space. The mission was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Get close enough to the alien civilization to see what they were really dealing with. Hayes, your ship ready? Stone called across the room. Yes, sir. Silent Thunder is loaded for a 6-week mission. We have full sensor arrays and communication equipment to establish contact with Federation forces. She paused. Sir, what are our rules of engagement if we encounter the Void Hunters? Stone considered the question carefully. Your primary mission is reconnaissance and establishing communication. But if you encounter enemy forces threatening Federation civilians, you are authorized to engage. We cannot let these creatures continue their killing while we watch. Kelly nodded. She had read the reports about what the Void Hunters did to their victims. The idea of standing by while sentient beings were consumed alive went against everything. She believed in another section of the base. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Turner addressed his Marine Battalion commanders. The men and women facing him represented the finest ground combat troops humanity had ever produced. They had trained for warfare on hostile worlds in zero gravity, against enemies that might not even be recognizably alive. Gentlemen, ladies, we do not know what we will face when we reach alien space. The Federation describes these void hunters as creatures that consume everything they encounter. We may need to conduct ground operations on worlds where the atmosphere is poison. The gravity is wrong, and everything is trying to kill us. Major Carl Davis raised his hand. Sir, what do we know about Federation biology? If we need to work alongside alien forces, we need to understand their capabilities and limitations. Turner activated a holographic display showing the preliminary analysis Dr. Foster had prepared. Federation species evolved on garden worlds with light gravity, thin atmospheres, and minimal predator pressure. What this means is that they are physically fragile by human standards. Their soldiers, if they have any, will be unable to operate in conditions we consider normal. The Marines exchanged glances. They had trained in environments that would kill most humans within minutes. The idea that an entire galactic civilization existed without understanding basic survival skills was hard to process. Does this mean we will be fighting alone? Asked Captain Linda Morris. Unknown, we'll work with whatever forces the Federation can provide, but we must be prepared to handle the primary combat role ourselves. Meanwhile, Captain Nicole Ward supervised the loading of medical supplies aboard her frigate, Mercy's Edge. The ship had been converted from a standard escort vessel into a floating hospital capable of treating mass casualties in combat conditions. Dr. Peter Clark, her chief medical officer, reviewed the alien biology data they had received. Captain, this is unlike anything we have trained for. Federation physiology is so different from human norms that our standard medical procedures might kill them instead of helping them. Ward looked at the data herself. The aliens had lighter bones, smaller hearts, and respiratory systems designed for atmospheres that would suffocate humans. What are our options, Doctor? We've been working with the xenobiology team to develop treatment protocols. The good news is that human medical technology is designed to handle massive trauma, gunshot wounds, explosion injuries, radiation exposure. Federation species appear to have never developed such robust medical capabilities because they never needed them. Which means our trauma medicine might be able to save alien lives that their own doctors would consider hopeless, Ward realized. Exactly. We just need to be careful not to apply treatments designed for human durability to patients who might not survive the cure. At the main spaceport, the first wave of ships prepared for departure, the dreadnought Iron Mountain led the formation, its massive bulk casting shadows over the smaller vessels around it. Captain Jerry Hughes had commanded the ship for 8 years, but had never expected to take her into combat against aliens from beyond the galaxy. His tactical officer, Commander Alex Chen, ran final systems checks on the ship's weapons array. Sir, all guns are operational. We have full missile loads and our fighter squadrons are at ready status. Hughes looked out at the fleet assembling around them. Each ship represented decades of human military development, weapons and tactics. Refined through centuries of warfare against other humans, now they would test those capabilities against an enemy that had never faced real resistance. Alex, what do you think we will find out there? Chen considered the question. Based on Federation descriptions, the Void Hunters rely on overwhelming numbers and psychological terror. They have never encountered an enemy that fights back effectively. Right. I think they are about to get a very unpleasant surprise. As the first ships began their journey toward alien space, General Stone watched from the command center. The mobilization had gone faster than anyone had thought possible. When faced with an external threat, humanity had put aside its differences and focused on what it did best, organize violence on a massive scale. Admiral Parker joined him at the main viewing screen. Marcus, do you think we are making the right choice? We are committing our entire military to help aliens we have never met. Stone thought about the desperate voice they had heard pleading for help across the void. Lisa, for the first time. In human history, we have the chance to be the heroes instead of the monsters. These Federation species have never known war, never learned to fight, never developed the killer instinct that kept our ancestors alive. They are facing extinction because they do not know how to be violent when violence is necessary. He paused, watching as another squadron of fighters launched toward the edge of the solar system. We are not just sending them military assistance. We're teaching the galaxy what it means to refuse to give up, to fight against impossible odds, and to make the universe bend to our will instead of accepting defeat. The Federation called for help, but what they are getting is something they cannot imagine. An entire civilization that has spent its existence learning how to survive in hell. The Great Fleet continued to assemble, carrying with it the hopes of two civilizations and the promise that the galaxy's age of peace was about to end. The Federation refugee convoy stretched across 50,000 kilometers of space, a ragged line of civilian ships fleeing the advancing Void Hunter swarm. Most of the vessels were cargo haulers and passenger transports never designed for extended space travel. Their crews were dying from stress-related medical failures as they pushed their ships beyond safe limits. Commander Kelly Hayes watched the alien fleet through the sensors of Silent Thunder, her stealth ship hidden in the shadow of a dead moon. The Federation ships were beautiful in their own way, all flowing curves and crystalline structures that caught and reflected starlight. They looked like works of art rather than functional spacecraft. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Tom Baker, her sensor officer. "Look at the size of that convoy. There must be millions of refugees in those ships." Kelly studied the tactical display. The alien vessels were moving in a perfect formation, each ship maintaining exact distance from its neighbors. It was an impressive display of coordination, but it was also tactically insane. Any competent military force could destroy the entire convoy with a single concentrated attack. "Baker, are you picking up any military escorts?" "Negative, Commander. These are all civilian vessels. I am not detecting any weapons systems beyond basic defensive shields." Kelly felt a chill. The Federation was fleeing for their lives with no military protection at all. When they said they were a peaceful civilization, they had meant it literally. Her communications officer, Sergeant Lisa Moore, looked up from her console. "Commander, I am receiving a transmission from the lead Federation ship. They are trying to establish contact. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the first alien Kelly had ever seen. The creature was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that dominated its face. It wore what appeared to be formal robes, and its movements were graceful, but clearly exhausted. "Unknown vessel, I am President Helen Price of the Federation Council. We detect your ship, but cannot identify your origin. Please respond if you are capable of communication." Kelly made a decision that would change galactic history. "This is Commander Kelly Hayes of the Earth vessel Silent Thunder. We received your distress call and have come to help." The alien's large eyes grew even wider. "We have no record of your world in our galactic databases. Are you a recently contacted species?"
Ow.
"Your people did not know we existed. We come from a world far from Federation space." Price seemed to struggle with this information. "Commander Hayes, I must ask, do your people possess military capability? The Void Hunters have destroyed our defense fleets. We need combat vessels, not rescue ships." Kelly looked at her crew, seeing the same grim amusement in their faces. The Silent Thunder was a reconnaissance vessel, lightly armed by human standards. By Federation standards, it was probably a super dreadnought. "President Price, our main fleet will arrive in 6 days. We have 847 warships en route to your position." The alien leader staggered backward. 800 warships? That is impossible. No single world could construct such a fleet. "Earth is not just one world, President Price. We represent a united human civilization spanning dozens of star systems. And yes, we can field that many combat vessels, because we have been building them for centuries." Before Price could respond, alarms began blaring on both ships. Baker's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, Void Hunter scouts incoming. 6 vessels, approaching fast." Kelly switched to the tactical display and felt her blood freeze. Void Hunter ships were unlike anything in human experience. They looked organic, like massive insects or deep-sea creatures, their hulls pulsing with internal lights. Each ship was the size of a human cruiser, but moved with the fluid grace of living things. "President Price, get your convoy moving. We'll handle the scouts." "Commander, you have only 1 ship. The Void Hunters will overwhelm you with numbers." Kelly smiled grimly. President Price, you are about to see what human military doctrine. Looks like she switched to her tactical channel. All stations, battle alert. We have 6 enemy contacts approaching Federation civilians. Rules of engagement are weapons free. Lieutenant Jake Wilson at the weapons console began targeting the incoming scouts. Commander, enemy vessels are accelerating toward the convoy. They appear to be attempting an attack run on the refugee ships. Denied. Open fire. Silent Thunder's weapon systems came online with deadly precision. The ship's main railgun fired first, sending a tungsten projectile through space at a fraction of light speed. The round struck the lead Void Hunter scout dead center, punching through its organic hull and detonating the creature's internal organs. The alien ship died instantly, its bioluminescent patterns fading as it tumbled away into the void. The remaining 5 scouts reacted with animal fury, changing course to attack the human vessel. They moved in a swarming pattern that would have overwhelmed most opponents through sheer confusion. Kelly had trained against human pilots who assumed she was trying to kill them personally. The Void Hunter tactics were aggressive but predictable. Wilson, fire at will. Baker, give me movement solutions. Silent Thunder danced between the attacking scouts, its engines firing in patterns that would have killed most Federation species. Through acceleration stress alone, human pilots, trained in 9-gravity acceleration, found the combat, maneuvering almost relaxing. The ship's secondary weapons opened fire in a coordinated barrage. Laser cannons designed to punch through human military armor cut through Void Hunter bioholes like they were made of paper. Missile systems locked onto the organic ships and fired guided munitions that tracked their targets no matter how they tried to evade in 3 minutes. All 6 Void Hunter scouts were dead. Kelly looked at the tactical display, showing empty space where moments before enemy ships had been attacking. Baker, confirm all targets destroyed, confirmed Commander. No surviving enemy vessels. She switched back to the Federation channel. President Price was staring at her with an expression of pure shock. Commander Hayes, how did you destroy 6 Void Hunter vessels so quickly? Our entire defense fleet could not stop a single one of their ships. Kelly considered how to explain human military capability to a species that had never experienced real warfare. President Price, the Void Hunters are effective against opponents who do not fight back. They rely on fear and overwhelming numbers. They have never faced an enemy that was designed specifically to kill other intelligent beings. I do not understand. Your people evolved on peaceful worlds where cooperation and intelligence were the keys to survival. Humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. We learned to fight not because we wanted to, but because anything that could not fight effectively died without passing on its genes. Price was quiet for a long moment. Commander, are you saying that your entire species is naturally violent? No, President Price. We are saying that we are naturally survivors. Violence is just one of the tools we use when survival requires it. Ambassador Craig Miller's voice came over the communication system from the main fleet. Commander Hayes, this is Ambassador Miller aboard the flagship. We are receiving reports of your engagement. Well done, Kelly smiled. Ambassador, I have established contact with Federation leadership. President Price, I would like you to meet Ambassador Craig. Miller, Earth's diplomatic representative. Miller appeared on screen, a middle-aged man in formal diplomatic attire. President Price, on behalf of Earth and humanity, I want you to know that your distress call has been heard. We are coming to help, and we will not stop until the Void Hunter threat has been eliminated. Price looked between the 2 humans, still struggling to process what she had witnessed. Ambassador Miller, Commander Hayes, just destroyed 6 Void Hunter vessels in minutes. How many more ships like hers do you have? Miller's expression grew serious. President Price, Commander Hayes, commands a reconnaissance vessel. It is one of our smallest and most lightly armed ships. The alien leader's face went pale. That was a small ship? What are your actual warships capable of? President Price, Miller said quietly. You are about to find out what happens when someone threatens innocent people in front of a species that spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things that were bigger, stronger, and more numerous than we were. In the distance, Space began to shimmer as the first elements of the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The age of Federation helplessness was about to end. Admiral Tony Garcia stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Iron Mountain as the main Void Hunter fleet appeared on long-range sensors. The alien armada was massive beyond anything the Federation had described in their desperate transmissions. Thousands of organic ships moved through space like a living plague, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with hungry light. "Contact count," Garcia asked his tactical officer. Commander Alex Chen studied the sensor readings with growing concern. "Sir, we have over 3,000 enemy vessels of various sizes. The largest appear to be breeding ships, mobile hive structures, that can manufacture new Void Hunters during combat." Garcia nodded grimly. The human fleet numbered less than 1,000 ships, but he had not expected favorable odds. Humanity's greatest military victories had always come when they were outnumbered and outgunned. "Signaled the fleet. All ships assume. Attack formation, Omega-7. Marines prepare for boarding operations." In the lower decks of Iron Mountain, Major Lisa Clark checked her combat armor one final time. The powered exoskeleton was designed to keep a human alive and fighting in conditions that would kill most known life forms. Around her, 300 Marines made similar preparations. "Listen up, people," Clark addressed her troops over the communication system. "Intelligence reports that Void Hunter ships are biological constructs. That means when we board them, we will be fighting inside living creatures. The walls might bleed, the floors might try to digest us, and the air will probably be poison." Sergeant Mike Torres raised his hand. "Ma'am, how do we kill something that is essentially one giant alien?" Clark smiled behind her helmet visor. "Torres, we kill it the same way humans have always killed things that were bigger than us. We find the vital organs, and we destroy them. These creatures might be ships, but they are still alive. Anything that lives can die." On the bridge, Garcia watched as the Void Hunter fleet began to accelerate toward the Federation's last stronghold. System. The enemy was moving in the same swarming pattern they had used to overwhelm peaceful civilizations across the galaxy. They expected terror, panic, and rapid collapse. Instead, they faced humanity's interpretation of space warfare. "All ships, commence firing," Garcia ordered. The human fleet opened fire at maximum range with weapons the Federation had never imagined. Railguns hurled projectiles at velocities that turned simple metal into devastating kinetic weapons. Missile systems launched guided warheads that could track targets across thousands of kilometers. Laser arrays designed to cut through human military armor sliced into Void Hunter. Bioholes like surgical instruments, the front ranks of the alien fleet died before they understood what was happening. Void Hunter ships that had swept aside Federation defenses without taking damage found themselves facing weapons that treated their organic armor as little more than tissue paper. Captain Jerry Hughes commanded Iron Mountain's main battery as the dreadnought engaged the largest Void Hunter vessels. The ship's primary railgun fired shells the size of small buildings, each one guided by computers that could calculate trajectory adjustments faster than most beings could think. "Target the breeding ships first," Hughes ordered. "We stop there. Ability to reinforce, then we clean up the smaller vessels." The massive Void Hunter breeding ship that served as the enemy flagship tried to evade the incoming fire. The creature was the size of a small moon, its surface covered with organic weapon systems and launch bays for fighter-sized spawn. It had never needed to worry about enemy fire because its previous opponents had been too weak to threaten it. Iron Mountain's main gun fired 3 times in rapid succession. The first shell punched through the creature's outer hull. The second penetrated deeper into its vital organs. And the third detonated inside what appeared to be the thing's brain. The massive bioship convulsed once and died. It's bioluminescent. Patterns fading as its body went limp in space, throughout the battle zone. Similar scenes played out as human ships demonstrated their mastery of combined arms warfare. Fighter squadrons led by pilots like Commander Beth Rogers swept through formations of Void Hunter spawn. Their weapons and tactics refined through decades of training against opponents who actively tried to kill them. The Void Hunters had evolved to fight through intimidation and overwhelming numbers. When faced with enemies who responded to terror with professional interest and met superior numbers with superior firepower, their entire combat doctrine collapsed. Rogers led her squadron. In a strafing run against a cluster of medium-sized Void Hunter vessels, the organic ships tried to swarm her fighters, but human pilots trained in three-dimensional combat found the alien tactics predictable and easily countered. Blue leader to all flights, Rogers called over the communication channel. These things fight like animals, not soldiers. Use standard anti-swarm tactics and pick your targets carefully. Her fighters spread into a formation that maximized their firepower while minimizing their vulnerability to counterattack. It was a maneuver that required split-second timing and absolute trust between pilots. The Void Hunters had never faced such coordinated resistance. The alien spawn died by the hundreds, their organic hulls unable to withstand weapons designed to penetrate human military armor. On Iron Mountain, Garcia watched the tactical display as the Void Hunter fleet began to break apart. The creatures were individually dangerous, but they had no understanding of strategic thinking or tactical flexibility. When their intimidation tactics failed, they had no backup plan. Reported enemy fleet is attempting to withdraw. Should we pursue? Garcia considered the question. The human fleet had taken minimal casualties while destroying nearly half the Void Hunter force. It was a victory beyond anything the Federation had thought possible. But Admiral Garcia had not come this far to win a single battle. He had come to end the threat permanently. Negative. Signal Major Clark to begin boarding operations. We need prisoners for intelligence gathering. Order all ships to maintain pursuit. These creatures have been consuming civilizations across the galaxy. Today they learn what it means to be hunted. Major Clark received the boarding order as her transport approached a damaged Void Hunter vessel. The organic ship was still alive, but crippled, its weapon systems destroyed by human fire. Marines, remember your training. We go in hard and fast. Secure the command areas and capture anything that looks important. These things have been killing innocent people for months. Time to show them what happens when they pick a fight with Earth. The transport docked with the alien vessel. It's cutting through its organic hull with tools designed for hostile environment operations. Clark was the first through the breach. Her armor's sensors immediately detecting the poisonous atmosphere and biological hazards inside the ship. The interior of the Void Hunter vessel was like stepping into the digestive system of some massive predator. The walls pulsed with internal fluids, and the air was thick with organic compounds that would have killed an unprotected human in seconds. For Clark and her Marines, it was just another hostile environment to be conquered. The boarding operation lasted 27 minutes. When it was over, the human forces had captured 3 Void Hunter specimens and enough biological samples to keep. Federation scientists busy for years. As the human fleet regrouped after the battle, Garcia looked out at the debris field that had been the enemy armada. The thousands of Void Hunter vessels floated dead in space. Their threat to galactic civilization ended by species they had never imagined existed. The Federation had called for help expecting salvation. They had received something far more valuable. They had learned that the universe contained at least one species that refused to accept defeat. Regardless of the odds, the age of Void Hunter terror was ending, replaced by something the galaxy had never known: the human way of war. Dr. Kate Phillips stared at the Void Hunter specimens laid out on the examination tables in the research lab aboard Iron Mountain. 3 days had passed since the boarding operations, and what her team had discovered made her stomach turn. The creatures were not natural evolution. They were manufactured weapons. Commander Davis, you need to see this. She called to the intelligence officer standing nearby. Commander Paul Davis approached the main examination table where Phillips had dissected one of the smaller Void Hunter specimens. Structure was visible under the bright surgical lights, revealing organs that made no biological sense.
What am I looking at, Doctor? Phillips pointed to a series of metallic structures embedded in the creature's nervous system.
These are control implants, sophisticated ones. The Void Hunters are not acting on natural instinct. They are being directed by external commands. Davis felt his blood go cold. You mean someone is controlling them? More than that. Someone created them. Look at this genetic analysis. Phillips activated a holographic display showing the creature's DNA structure. This genome has been artificially constructed. No natural evolution could produce this combination of traits. These things were designed specifically to consume other life forms. In another part of the ship, Major Sandra Lewis worked with Federation survivors to piece together the timeline of the Void Hunter attacks. President Helen Price sat across from her in the briefing room, her alien features showing exhaustion and growing horror as the truth emerged. President Price, I need you to think carefully about the first Void Hunter attack. Was there anything unusual about their targeting? Did they seem to know exactly where to strike? Price considered the question. Now that you mention it, Commander Lewis, they did seem to know our defensive positions perfectly. They avoided our strongest military installations and struck at civilian population centers first. We assumed they were simply following standard invasion tactics. Lewis made notes on her tablet. What about communication intercepts? Did your intelligence services detect any unusual transmissions before the attacks began? Yes, actually. Long-range monitoring stations detected strange signals from the edge of our territory. The transmissions were in an unknown language, so we dismissed them as natural phenomena. Lewis exchanged glances with Dr. Phillips, who had just entered the briefing room. Doctor, show President Price what we found in the Void Hunter specimens. Phillips activated her portable holographic projector, displaying the genetic analysis. Of the captured creatures, President Price, the Void Hunters are not a natural species. They were created by someone with advanced knowledge of genetic engineering and biological warfare. Price stared at the display in shock. Created. But who would do such a thing, and why? That is what we are trying to determine, Lewis replied. But based on the evidence, we believe someone with detailed knowledge of Federation capabilities designed these creatures specifically to exploit your weaknesses. Dr. Phillips pulled up another display showing the communication intercepts Lewis had mentioned. We have been analyzing those strange signals your people detected. They are not natural phenomena. They are command and control transmissions directed. At the Void Hunter fleet, Price went very still. Command transmissions. From where? Phillips highlighted a section of space on the galactic map. The signals originate from this region, the old Architect territory. The Federation president's face went pale blue. The Architects? But they disappeared from galactic society thousands of years ago. We assumed they had died out or transcended to another plane of existence. Lewis leaned forward. Or tell us about these Architects. Price seemed to struggle with her words. They were one of the founding members of the Federation. Brilliant scientists and engineers who helped design much of our technology. But they became distant, critical of what they called our stagnation and weakness. They withdrew from galactic affairs and eventually stopped all communication. What kind of technology did they possess? Phillips asked. Advanced beyond anything we have today. Genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, planetary construction. If anyone could create the Void Hunters, it would be the Architects. Back on the bridge, Admiral Garcia reviewed the intelligence reports with growing anger. The idea that the Galactic crisis was an inside job created by the Federation's own former allies made the situation far more serious than a simple alien invasion. Captain Jerry Hughes joined him at the command console. Admiral, long-range sensors have detected something in the Architect territory. A massive artificial construct, heavily defended. Garcia studied the sensor readings. The structure was enormous, larger than most planets and surrounded by defensive installations that made human military engineering look primitive by comparison. Sir Hughes continued, we are receiving a transmission from that location. The Architects want to talk. The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that was clearly related to Federation species but somehow different. The Architect was taller, with features that seemed artificially perfected. Its eyes held an intelligence that felt cold and calculating. Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Architect Prime, speaking for the collective. We have observed your military performance against our Void Hunter creation with great interest. Garcia stepped forward. Architect Prime, you admit to creating the Void Hunters? To causing the deaths of billions of innocent beings? Innocent? Hardly. Their current galactic civilization is a failure, weak, stagnant, and incapable of growth. We created the Void Hunters as a test to determine if any species in the galaxy possessed the strength to resist existential threats. President Price appeared on a secondary screen, her voice shaking with rage. You murdered billions of our people as a test. Architect Prime showed no emotion. We provided evolution pressure that your species had been lacking for millennia. The weak died, as they should. The strong would have survived and grown stronger. Garcia felt his anger building. And what about the species that were completely destroyed? What evolution did they receive? They failed the test. Their genetic lines were clearly unfit for survival in a hostile universe. Dr. Phillips' voice came over the communication system from the lab. Admiral, I am detecting something in the background of this transmission. The Architect construct is not just a habitat, it is a weapons platform. A massive one. Architect Prime smiled coldly. Very perceptive, Dr. Phillips. Yes, we possess the capability to eliminate any species that threatens our experiment. The Void Hunters were Phase 1 of our Galactic Renewal Project. If they had succeeded, we would have seeded new worlds with improved life forms of our own. Design? And if they failed? Garcia asked. Then we would have conducted a more direct intervention. The galaxy requires management by beings capable of making the difficult decisions that lesser species cannot handle, Hughes whispered urgently. To Garcia, sir, the Architect defensive systems are powering up. They have weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. Garcia made a decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Architect Prime, you have admitted to genocide and threatened further violence against innocent populations. Humanity cannot allow that to continue. And what do you propose to do about it, Admiral Garcia? Your fleet is impressive by galactic standards, but we possess technology that predates your civilization by thousands of years. Garcia smiled grimly. Architect Prime, you made one critical error in your calculations. You assumed that because the Federation's species were weak, all galactic civilizations would be equally helpless. You never considered that somewhere in the galaxy there might be a species that had spent its entire existence learning how to kill things that were bigger, stronger, and more advanced than themselves. The transmission ended abruptly as the Architect construct began powering its weapon systems. Garcia turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations. Signal Earth Command. We need the reserve fleet out here immediately. We are about to face an enemy that makes the Void Hunters look like a warm-up exercise. As alarms sounded throughout the human fleet, Garcia looked out at the massive Architect construct in the distance. Humanity had come to save the Federation from the Void Hunters, but now they faced the real threat, the creators themselves. The galaxy's future would be decided by whether a species, evolved on a death world, could defeat beings who considered themselves gods. Commander Rachel Torres watched the massive Architect construct grow larger on her ship's view screen as her diplomatic vessel approached the enemy's stronghold. The structure was unlike anything human engineers had ever built, a perfect sphere. The size of a small moon, its surface covered with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. Behind her diplomatic ship, the entire human battle fleet maintained weapons lock on the Architect defenses. Admiral Garcia had made it clear that this negotiation would happen on human terms, with human ships ready to turn the enemy's stronghold into scrap metal if the talks went badly. Commander, we are receiving a docking request from the Architect. Construct, reported Lieutenant Dave Cooper, her communications officer. Torres considered the request carefully. Accepting meant placing herself and her crew at the mercy of beings who had casually murdered billions of people as a scientific experiment. Refusing meant starting a war that could destroy galactic civilization. Accept the docking request, but keep our engines hot and weapon systems on standby. The diplomatic ship Relentless docked with the Architect construct through an airlock that seemed to grow out of the station's hull like living tissue. Torres and her security team, led by Captain Greg Watson, stepped through the threshold into an environment that challenged human understanding. The interior of the construct was vast beyond comprehension. Corridors stretched into the distance farther than human eyes could see, their walls covered with displays showing data from across the galaxy. The air hummed with power that made the hair on Tora's arms stand up. "Welcome, humans, to our sanctuary of higher thought," a voice said from everywhere and nowhere. Architect Prime materialized in front of them, not walking from another room, but simply appearing as if reality had been edited to include him. Was tall and elegant, his features perfect in a way that suggested artificial enhancement rather than natural evolution. "Architect Prime," Torres said formally. "I am Commander Rachel Torres, representing Earth and humanity in these negotiations." "Negotiations?" Prime seemed amused. "Commander Torres, you speak as if you have something to offer that we might want. We have observed your species for only a few days. What could you possibly possess that interests beings who have transcended physical limitations?" Captain Watson stepped forward, his hand resting on his sidearm. "Maybe you should ask the Void. Hunters, what we possess." "Oh wait, you can't. They're all dead." Prime's expression darkened. "Your military victory over our creations was impressive, but hardly unexpected. We designed the Void Hunters to test galactic resistance, not to face a true military civilization. You succeeded where the Federation failed, because you understand warfare. This makes you useful, but not irreplaceable." Torres activated her tablet, displaying the data her team had gathered about the Architect technology. "Prime, our scientists have analyzed your construct. Your defensive systems are powerful, but they rely on energy sources that can be disrupted. Your weapons are devastating, but they require charging time that leaves you vulnerable. You built this place to intimidate peaceful species, not to fight a real war. Impossible. Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than yours." "Advanced. Yes, but not battle-tested." Torres gestured to Watson. "Captain Watson here has spent his career learning how to destroy things that were supposedly indestructible. Every human military officer trains under the assumption that they will face superior technology, superior numbers, and superior firepower. Walked to one of the wall displays, calling up images of human military history. "Yes, we have studied your species. Constant warfare, endless conflict, destruction of your own environment. You are savages who somehow achieve space travel." "No," Torres replied quietly. "We are survivors. And survival means learning from every enemy, adapting to every threat, and never giving up, no matter how bad things look." The display changed. To show the current tactical situation, the human fleet surrounded the Architect construct, their weapons trained on defensive installations that Prime had considered invulnerable. "You see our defenses as a challenge to be overcome rather than a deterrent to be feared," Prime observed. "We see them as a problem to be solved," Watson corrected. "Solved, and humans are very good at solving problems that involve making dangerous things stop working." Dr. Monica Bell joined the conversation via communication link from the flagship. "Prime, our psychological analysis suggests that your species is suffering from advanced stagnation syndrome. You created the Void Hunter crisis because you were bored and depressed, not because the galaxy actually needed evolutionary pressure." Prime turned sharply toward the communication pickup. "You dare to psychoanalyze us?" "We dare to understand you," Bell replied. "The Architects withdrew from galactic society because you felt superior to everyone else. But that superiority led to isolation and purposelessness. Creating the Void Hunters was your way of forcing the galaxy to become more interesting. Even if that were true, what does it matter? We possess the power to reshape galactic civilization according to our vision." Tora stepped closer to Prime. "Actually, you don't, because your vision is flawed. You think strength comes from eliminating weakness, but that's not how evolution works. Strength comes from surviving weakness and learning from it." She activated another display showing Federation recovery efforts. "Look at what's happening in Federation space. The species that survived your test aren't just recovering. They're learning. They're developing new technologies, new strategies, new ways of thinking about survival. You didn't eliminate their weakness. You taught them how to be strong." Prime stared at the display with growing confusion. "That was not the intended outcome, because you don't understand the difference between artificial selection and natural evolution." Bell explained over the communication link. "You tried to force evolution through external pressure, but real evolution comes from internal adaptation to environmental challenges. Watson saw the uncertainty in Prime's expression and pressed the advantage. Your Void Hunters were just another environmental challenge. The Federation species adapted to meet it, with our help. They're already stronger than they were before. Your attack, but the weak species were eliminated. No, Torres said firmly. The weak individuals were eliminated, but the species learned and adapted. That's how evolution actually works, through learning and adaptation, not through wholesale slaughter. Prime walked to another display, this one showing the architect constructs interior. Torres could see other architects moving through the corridors, but they seemed listless and purposeless, like beings who had lost all direction. We believe that galactic civilization had become stagnant and needed renewal through controlled destruction, Prime said quietly. But destruction isn't renewal, Bell replied. Teaching is renewal. Sharing knowledge is renewal. Helping others grow stronger is renewal. Torres made her final offer. Prime humanity proposes a different solution. Instead of ruling the galaxy, through fear, help us establish a defense academy. Teach other species how to protect themselves. Share your knowledge freely instead of hoarding it. And in return, you get what your species has been missing for thousands of years: purpose. Instead of being isolated gods, you become teachers and protectors. Prime was quiet for a long time, studying the displays around him. Finally, he spoke. And if we refuse this offer, Captain Watson answered without hesitation, then we treat you as a threat to galactic peace and act accordingly. Our fleet may not be able to match your individual weapons, but we have something you lost long ago: the absolute determination to win no matter what the cost. Prime looked between Torres and Watson, seeing in their faces the same quality that had driven humanity to dominate their hostile homeworld. They were not bluffing about their willingness to fight an apparently hopeless battle. Very well, we accept your proposal. But understand, we do this not from weakness, but from curiosity. About your alternative approach to galactic development. Torres smiled. Prime, that's the first step. Toward wisdom, admitting you might be wrong and being willing to learn something new. 6 months later, Admiral Lisa Parker stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Defense Academy, watching Federation cadets practice combat maneuvers under human instruction. The academy was built on a former Federation capital world, its curriculum designed around the revolutionary idea that the universe was dangerous and survival required. Constant vigilance, President. Helen Price joined her at the observation window. Admiral Parker, our young people are learning things we never imagined possible. Your instructors are teaching them that strength comes not from avoiding conflict, but from being prepared for it. Parker nodded. President Price, the galaxy called for help and expected saviors. Instead, they got teachers. And teachers are much more valuable than saviors because they help you save yourself. On the training field below, human instructors worked alongside reformed architects, sharing knowledge that would ensure the galaxy never again faced an existential threat unprepared. The age of galactic innocence was over, replaced by something far more valuable: the age of informed strength.